Counter-Terrorism Policing Unit has issued a high terrorist attack alert for British nationals in South Africa. The unit says the threat is from persons inspired by terrorist groups like the Daesh and who may carry out lone actor attacks. Joining us now to look at this particular story, Willem Els from the Institute for Security Studies. Willem, good to see you once again, and thank you very much for coming on. Informed by the UK that this is what is happening in South Africa. That in itself is not something that we are seeing for the first time. It happened, I think, last year sometime, the US issuing a similar advice to its people visiting South Africa. There will be a terrorist attack in Sandton. What does this tell us, and what's your position about what does this tell us if this kind of information can just come to people, be on public domain without the South African government itself giving us this alert?
Good evening to you. Yeah, you are right. Last year we saw the American advice or warning. It was also backed up by some European embassies as well as the UK embassy. So what happens is, every embassy in a foreign country, whenever they pick up some information or intelligence about some possible threat to their people traveling to that country, or people living there, residing there, that are their citizens, they normally post a warning like this on their website, and this is what happened here with the High Commission. They posted this alert on their website. So informing British nationals coming here, but also alerting them of the specific type of attacks and where to go and where not to go. So we see that with crime as well. Where you have high crime levels, they also have some advice on that. But this is very particular because normally what will happen in a situation like this, they are in contact with especially their South African counterparts before they will issue such an alert. They will have a meeting, they will inform, they will share information, and then it's up to the intelligence agency or the country to issue that warning. And so we see that the British actually issued this warning then on their website.
So what you're saying, there is nothing wrong with the channels of communication between South African security cluster and the intelligence of the UK. It's just that South Africa chooses not to take that information seriously, maybe.
It might be the case, yes, but normally in my time when I was working in that circles, that was the modus operandi. There will be some meetings, there will be information shared, and it will be discussed, deliberated, and then every entity, of course, then investigate further, and then they decide whether they're going to escalate it or they're not going to escalate it. So in this case, we saw that the British actually decided to escalate it, but we should also see that in the light of the recent attack in Russia, and also the recent warning that came out on one of the websites or the media outlets used by this group mentioned by them, Daesh, that is the Arabic acronym for ISIS.
So what should be our position in this regard? I mean, firstly, how do we establish the veracity of these claims?
First of all, we've got an intelligence service, both the national one that's internal, and the SSA, and then we also have our foreign or secret service that operates in the countries where we have missions, and there's normally a fairly good relationship between them and the different services where they are operational, and also, of course, strict codes of conduct and ethics that they have to adhere to. But what is very interesting about this one is that they warned about a lone wolf attack, and we know that is one of your most difficult scenarios to gather intelligence on, because normally if a person works alone, he operates alone or she operates alone, it is very difficult to pick up communications and all the other intelligence methods in order to counter these people. They also mentioned that it is gatherings where a lot of people are coming together, and we see in the warning on the media outlet used by Daesh or ISIS-K, the terrorist group that claimed responsibility for last month's attack in Russia, that they actually threatened to attack all four of the first leg quarterfinal matches that are being played this week in UK as well as in France and in Spain. So, but based on that, we need to draw the lines, and we need to pick up. So what they did is they actually heightened the security. They're going ahead with those games, but of course they heightened the security efforts in order to prevent attacks.
So South Africa's response last year was, look, there's no evidence of a sentient terrorism threat. There's just no evidence to this. This time around, I don't know what their reaction would be, but how do they establish the veracity of these claims? How do they go around to gather this evidence of this potential lone actor?
Yeah, that is, like I said, is one of the most difficult scenarios to do. They have to pick up. Obviously, one of the first methods of picking up is following the money. If money is being sent from a suspicious source towards this person or a known terrorist source or funding source, they follow the money. Secondly, your communications, especially on your social media, they pick up on that when they're monitoring these groups. So they have what you call it, they've got the methods in place in order to monitor some of these groups and so on. So our intelligence service is monitoring that, and maybe based on their analysis of this, they decided not to issue any warning.
Have we gotten to the point where we now have the ability to respond and maybe even prevent these so-called attacks?
Unfortunately, due to the state capture, we are busy with the amendment bill or the GILA bill that they're trying to put through Parliament, and that was signed off. A public comment was there. There's a lot of flaws. It is there. And the amendments are there in order to recapture the intelligence services after the state capture that really severely hampered our capacity in order to do these kind of things. We are not there yet. But we managed to see some improvements, especially if you look at on the crime intelligence side, where we saw that there were various successes where they managed to infiltrate and also prevent some criminal activities and do some arrests. So we think that they are getting there, but unfortunately, because the legislation amendment bill is not being signed, all the structures are not in place for our intelligence service to really fire on all pistons as yet.
Are these red flags of possible terror attacks in South Africa just a mere alarmist, or do they suggest something about, I suppose, our confidence in South Africa's ability to deal with terrorism?
Well, in South Africa, we've got a policy that we're trying to not to affront. We're trying to accommodate a lot of people, etc. But what is also came to the fore in recent years is that South Africa became a hub for terror financing. So we've got a lot of these groups that are operational in South Africa. We don't seem to bother them a lot, and they seem to manipulate and to use our systems, our banking system, the money gathering here. And we also picked up in various reports how this money is then channeled out of South Africa towards these radical groups. So on the one hand, it would not be wise for them to really to rock the boat in South Africa, because they can really almost operate under the radar here. So that's on the one hand. On the other hand, as I mentioned, our intelligence capacity has been severely hampered. They are busy rebuilding, but we are not there yet.
So would you say, like Washington, this is the UK feeling obliged to do something because they feel Pretoria is not doing enough? It might be
a method of them to pressure South Africa to do more. South Africa is currently being greylisted by the FATF body because of terror financing and these prosecutions exactly that are not going too well. South Africa is working very hard to restore that. We saw that towards the end of last year, the President signed off the amendment bill on the Poktatara Act, that is our Counterterrorism Act, strengthening the hands of our investigators. So slowly but surely South Africa is getting there, but I don't think we are there yet. And this is maybe also a method by these international agencies to push South Africa into the right direction in order to be more proactive in terms of counterterrorism. But we also know that your SO15 or your your counter-terrorism branch of New Scotland Yard. They are pretty very proactive. They are very effective in what they are doing. So when they come with something like that, it is most probably very credible.
Willem, appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on. That's Willem Els there with the Institute for Security Studies, a researcher there.